Good morning from Merlin Peter at Alcorrobi in Catalonia. We are near the coast at La Mer de Mar and an old Roman town called El Perelló. And we have a 3-hectare farm which I use to teach permaculture to volunteers or give them an easy stay here and do some natural wildlife and hiking around the mountains and the sea coasts. Get involved with nature, and I live with my dogs and I've just been for a run, so I'm feeling quite good. The name of the project is called Alcorrobi, as in carob, carob or carub, Alcorroba is a particular fruit, and I'll show you some of those later. We have quite a few trees, and this is mainly an olive and an almond farm, but this is a good opportunity to do an end of the year tour in an edited form of video, and you can find these videos and photos and regular updates at www.soteriologicgarden.com, which is an umbrella organisation for spiritual permaculture basically. And I invite other farms to join in to that umbrella organisation. Soteriologic or soteriology is in fact a Christian or Buddhist term for salvation, or doctrine for salvation. So I'm looking at salvation from an ecological point of view. So anyhow, I just got back from a short stay in Mallorca, and I came back to tornado damage, the first I've ever seen in my life. Last year we had severe snow for 3 days, and the year before that we had severe flooding. So whilst I was in Mallorca, we almost had a bit of everything, which is indicating something of the climate change which is happening here in Catalonia, especially in these dry, very humid conditions that these trees have to live in. So as humans, if you're coming out here thinking you're just going to be a tourist, well, it's costing quite a lot of money for the local governments to repair the damage caused by wind, flooding, smashed up coastlines with gigantic waves. And we're on the Mediterranean coast here, bear in mind, not the Atlantic. And fire. And because of the extreme conditions, we get the potential for any type of chaos to happen at any time in the year now. We'll see what happens next year, whether there's going to be another tornado or two, and more flooding, more extreme weather, and whether these are ideal conditions for a simple tourist to come out here and think he's going to have, or she's going to have, a lovely life at a local restaurant or bar on the seaside, or actually come out here and try and adapt to these changing global conditions. And that's what I do as a permaculturist. I teach volunteers, passers-by, cyclists. They're welcome. And at the same time, I'm spiritually enhancing my own lifestyle and adapting to various influences in my life, like being alone, for instance, or having dogs for company rather than humans. And as I look at my folks who are getting older, I realise that in maybe a very short time I could be completely by myself, other than me and Mother Nature. And I'm very good at that. I love it. But I also like to travel. I'm a long distance cyclist, so I'm very top form in terms of health. I grow my own food here. And I invite everyone who hasn't been before to come and experience it. Okay, so I'm in the outdoor kitchen area, and I've been developing this area now for only a few years. And if I get out the way, you may be able to see something of the outdoor oven which I'm building over there, with a pyramid of recycled tyres which are filled up with earth. And the idea behind that is an earthship scheme where I'm creating a protected area. Now this protected area is not going to be your traditional type of insulated building. It's going to be an open structure to inhibit something of the wind which is passing through. So when I got back from Mallorca, I have a tower here in front of me, which has a couple of transporter beehive boxes on the top, and a container of water there for washing up, and just some dishes and that type of thing. And it's my worktop and my cooking area and that type of thing. That had fallen over partly, not completely, so the wind had caused some damage, and the water container had fallen back and broken, which I repaired. Now, coming back from a tornado, I expected maybe a lot more damage as I was walking around the land, but in fact there wasn't. The only real damage was the branches of the carob tree, which is a very fragile wood. It's very brittle, and any type of wind can regularly damage those types of fruit trees. Whereas there was no real damage on the olive, and certainly no other real damage on the rest of the site. I've got a wind turbine which wasn't touched, and we'll come back to that. And I've also have a food tunnel which is woven cane, which also wasn't touched. So there are small miracles happening here, and as the tornado passed from the sea, and we're about 6 kilometers inland, it literally crossed over the dry riverbed, which we call a barranco, and it's called the Barranc de Estany, and smashed a load of pine trees. And when I say a load, I mean hundreds upon hundreds were toppled. Pine trees live on very shallow soils, and it came across the corner, knocked out a couple of big pine trees, and then went across my neighbour's land, caused more damage, and then straight across the road onto the my local neighbours there. One's a vet, and the other one's a long-term friend of my family, and they had vehicles overturned, trees falling on garages, and all sorts of things. So, relatively speaking, I came out of it unscathed. So anyway, this is what we have. It's probably a good idea just to pick up the camera now and give you a view of what's going on. So this is all scaffolding which is recycled, and I've now concreted in the legs so that it can't topple over anymore, really. And as I walk around, you see everything's stuff I found on the streets or been dumped at the bins. You'd be surprised what people actually throw away. And here's the oven area, and eventually this is going to be a nice a double stove there with a traditional earth oven here, and getting up the ties as high as possible to prevent the wind from coming through, because it whistles through from that direction, which is northwest. And as I go around very slowly, you can see I've created a double wall of tyres with various places where I would build a post and beam structure with some sort of corrugated sheeting roof. So all that's to come. So there's a lot of work to do here, but obviously I've got to find soil to fill these tyres up with, and the excavations from various projects around the farm, including repairing walls and building a cistern over there, meant that I've got a surplus of excavation. So it all makes sense that you can't be working on one project and leave another project undone. It's all part of this circular logic. There's no particular cause, it's infinite cause. What we have to look at is the connectedness of all things, including weather, your psychic interferences, types of food that you're eating, your behavioural patterns, you know, your exercising and that type of thing, and your vision. You know, there's a lot of things that contribute to why you are here in this moment, in this spot. So just take a look at that, and maybe in a couple of years' time you will see a post and beam structure made of natural pine trees which have been felled by myself, but now I obviously have a surplus of them because there's hundreds, as I say, been fallen by the tornado, and they're all treated with a natural sort of used motor oil. I wouldn't say natural, I would say recycled motor oil with added diesel. And I have a little observation spot here for my bees. See, this is just surplus wax and propolis and some sugar in there for them to get the jaws into. And this is really going to be the main area for gatherings for volunteers and for other cyclists and travellers to come by. Okay, so I'm standing here with my beehives, and unfortunately I've had a really bad year for bees. The year started off really well, cropping my first load of honey, and I did some splits and there was still flower about, so I was on about 15 to 20 beehives. I was selling honey, I was selling bees, and it was a nice source of income for that time in the year, because the main cropping season has just passed. So you know, there's quite a lot of months where I don't have any money coming in. So there I was, and I'd done these splits, and then I had a massive attack of wax moth. Now, people say wax moth move into hives when there's something wrong with the queen, but I know that's not actually true. You only know it from experience. The fact is that when there's an infestation of wax moth, what you actually get is inhibition. It stalls the hive, and the queen stops laying eggs. And consequently, because I'd done late splits, maybe only about 3 or 4, and I'd sold some hives, the colonies are very small, and then the flower dies out during the summer. So there's no food sources other than what you give them in terms of sugar syrup. And then you hope that the flower and the rains come in the autumn, and they started to come. But by then, this infestation of wax moth had passed from hive to hive to hive. And I have to admit, I've got 5 hives left here, and 2 of them on tender hooks. And I don't know if you can see that hive over there, the one I'm pointing to, where the orange is. Well, that's being attacked by what you call robber bees. So when the colony is very small, the robber bees will sniff it out, and especially if there's a lame queen in there, they would just go in and steal everything, and it's effectively a dead colony. So I've tried to close up the apertures with some grass to see if what remaining bees are in there can defend themselves. But that's exactly what happened during the summer after the wax moth. So I had reduced size colonies, and then robber bees went in. And then we had a cold snap about, well, actually, coming back from Mallorca, we had a cold snap, and that knocked out 3 more hives. It went down to about 1 degree, so I started putting these coffee sacks on top to see if I can, like I did the year before, to see if I can preserve these hives. And unfortunately, in one night, bang, I lost 3 more. And now, with the good weather, we get the robber bees coming back. So any small colonies get sniffed out very quickly. Robber bees go in there, strip it completely clean, and they may even kill the queen. So I've got a whole load of empty hives here, and what's interesting is that my best hive, when I returned from Mallorca, from my short stay there, had toppled over, and in the process of toppling over, it trapped the bees inside it. Now, it could have been a wild boar, it could have been someone vandalizing, coming through the land whilst I wasn't here, that type of thing. And I checked the area, and there was in fact a fruit tree which had also snapped, but it dried in the process, which meant that it was very brittle. So if it was the wind that blew that over, it doesn't really explain why none of these hives were blown over. So, as I say, I don't want to put any finite causes to why some of these things happen, but just look at the whole system and see if there is balance in it, as you would try to look for balance within your own mind and body. So I still have 3 very strong hives, and I hope that they will produce a little bit of honey for me next year, and I can do some splits, and then I'll start again. Clean your equipment, make sure that any new colonies will get a good start in life, and we've had some good rain, so there's still a lot of flower around. let's hope I can get back from Africa and the UK to find that I still have bees. Okay, here we are. I've obviously started cleaning up the land and cutting back all the branches which were ripped off the trees by the tornado. And I don't know if you can see that carob tree directly in front of me, but that would have been a very heavy canopy of leaves which are completely gone now. And as I come over here, you see that the only trees which were really uprooted were the pine trees, because they are shallow rooted. There's my beautiful medicinal eucalyptus. I mean, there's potential here. When you look at Father Chaos, not Father Christmas, Father Chaos, and you realise what's the role of us as individuals. We are sons and daughters of Father Chaos. We are heroes of us. And the reason we are heroes is because we return from Father Chaos to create order. It's the whole anarchist sentiment. You can stay as close to Father Chaos as you want, but as soon as you want to make a sacrifice back to society, you need to basically come to your senses and ground yourself and say, okay, so what have I gained from the experience of Father Chaos? So I'm going to walk through here, the cemetery of dogs and cats which have died over the years. Show you some more damage. And here's my Stone of Destiny, which I used to pat every time I was going on a jog or for a bike ride. But now it's quite, well, it's a little bit inaccessible now. But all of this was a very, very shady area. And this is the border point with my neighbour, who's a police officer. He's given me this wood, so I'm going to use it. I'm just going to let the rain wash it off and see what it looks like. In fact, I may be able to create a structure here. Look at what nature's actually providing you, even in extreme forms, and say to yourself, how can I utilise everything that's here? Is this building material? Is this more biochar which I'm going to make? Or is it a shelter? I can use it? Or is it maybe an opportunity to grow other plants because of the opened up canopy? I mean, lots of questions as an ecologist and a permaculturist which you would be naturally asking. So there's about 4 or 5 downed pine trees here, and I've got no more access over here. But I am reclaiming this part of the land, and Father Chaos has actually done me a little bit of a favour in stripping a load of the area, which meant exposing unseen fruit trees like olive and carob, which were hidden in all the wild growth. So this is the dry riverbed. Lots of resources, and I need to create my system with provision. I need to change the way I think about nature and understand that climate change is here, whether you believe it's human induced or not, doesn't matter. Climate change is here, and we create systems which are resilient and useful for human structures or human societies, and that way we integrate. And that's the big lesson. Okay, so I'm now inside the cistern, and I've done a lot of work on this last year. I've been excavating down here. I was talking about the excavations earlier. Well, I'm going deep. I'm going into a shape of an egg. And I need to fill up my buckets, take it to the top, throw it into a wheelbarrow, take it to other parts of the land where I can infill walls or infill those rubber tyres. This cistern is going to have a capacity of over 100,000 litres of water. It will completely change the dynamic on this farm once it's in place. But it's not just a cistern, it's a temple. It's my fertility point. There's no water on this land. We're in between 2 dry riverbeds, and at its deepest point it's about 150 feet to the bottom of the riverbed. So there's no water stored up here. No point going digging for it, spending thousands of euros trying to find it. I have to collect water in another way. So I've got an idea, and the area I've just come from is in fact on a level plain to where I'm standing now. And it's the area of the land that floods. So this idea of dealing with Father Chaos is, how do we make use of extreme weather patterns that can benefit us? And one way is to collect floodwaters. So I'm going to build another small system, which is going to be a very quick affair, to collect runoff coming from the neighbour's farm onto this farm before it goes down into the riverbed, the dry riverbed. And if I collect it, again using rubber tyres just to build a small raised pond, I can then channel on the level plain up to here, where I'm going to install a pump on the outside of this system to pump the water in. And we're talking about millions upon millions of litres of water, which is available across the whole landscape. In this case, I may be able to salvage 30 to 50,000 litres of waters every time it floods. But I'm adapting the system, so I don't know the specifics and the exact quantity. So the idea is just to be able to salvage what's been given for free, what's provident. So there's going to be an area inside here where it's going to receive a tube taking the water from the outside. And as I say, it's going to be higher than this as well. There I'm going to increase the height with some block work and then mould and create a smooth finish for the egg form. And the dynamics of the egg form is, you can actually hear about in the previous video which I've made. But it's not just a temple, it's also my tomb. And in a way, it's a natural law, it's a natural right that the land belongs to you if you're buried, or it belongs to your family if you're buried on that land. And why shouldn't we spend 10 years, 20 years building the place where we're going to be buried in the future? Why don't people look at death as just a transitional moment where we move into another level of existence? And I do. And so the death of nature, the death of structures, the death of ideas, they're all transitional points, making way for something else, something new to come in. So I like the idea that I'm building my tomb, and I'm going to be buried down there somewhere, and on top of me is going to be a load of water. But it's not just a tomb, it's going to be an ecological pond. I'm going to have some fishes in here. I'm going to make sure I have a dip. I want to create biodiversity. As I say, it's about fertility. And I want to be able to stand here and feel like I'm one with nature. Almost like inside the womb of nature. And I have these overarching pine trees which eventually may have to be downed because the winds get so strong that they could quite easily push over in this direction. But in the process, I will be planting up other types of species, ones more adapted. And I will be in here not just with fish, but with lots of bees, because there's a load of beehives on the other side of that wall which need water to build their comb. And then all those other insects, and of course there's going to be lots of mosquitoes and lots of things. So I have to think about that in the future. Fish eat mosquito larvae. Start thinking about cycles, about how you integrate, and it's not just what you want, but what other species want as well. So it's not just an ecological pond. The idea is that this egg shape is going to continue upwards, and I'm going to create a platform on the top and use it as a meditation spot. Now people will hopefully come in the future to become a part of the sort of itinerant community which I want to create here, and run retreats, courses, whether it's ecology, permaculture, health, yoga, martial arts. Anything where I can see mind body balance being exercised, I think that's what I'm trying to create. And it doesn't matter from what religious background you come from. So let's go outside now.